Hey, Darin here, and welcome to the Heartland Multifamily Show. I'm glad you've joined me today because today we're going to talk about gold. That's right, we're going to talk about gold. And I'm not talking about investing in gold or multifamily or gold. What we're going to talk about today are the three gold nuggets. The three gold nuggets that you are going to be able to take out of a multifamily property. And not only that, the gold nuggets that you should require before you even purchase a multifamily property. Welcome to the Heartland Multifamily Show, the shorter, more profitable path to multifamily ownership and investing. You digging gold out of multifamily, especially the next multifamily property that you purchase. Now, chances are you are considering multifamily, you're looking at investing maybe in your first multifamily property, but no matter if it's your first multifamily property or your next one, these three gold nuggets I'm going to talk to you about are mandatory. That's right, I'm saying mandatory in order for you to make as much income, as much value from those apartment communities that you're going to be investing in. And by the way, this is either for active or passive investors to know this, and it doesn't matter whether it's a 400 unit, what we're going to be talking about applies to all of them. So let's go ahead and let's just jump right into gold nugget number one. Now, I want to caution you about nugget number one. It is not the kind of gold nugget that you're probably thinking I would mention, but it is an important gold nugget and the reason why I'm naming it number one, the first gold nugget. And it's simply this. You want to look for apartment communities that you can purchase and invest in that have been owned a minimum of 10 to 15 years by the same owner. I'll say it again. You want to be looking for purchasing, ideally, that apartment community, doesn't matter the size, that's been owned by the same owner, company, partnership, individual, doesn't matter, for a minimum of 10 to 15 years, preferably longer than 10 to 15 years. Now, you're probably asking, what does that have to do with anything, Darin? Why is that a gold nugget? For really two main reasons. Number one, a property that has been owned that long is a property more than likely that operates and runs well. In other words, do you think if the property was in a bad location, had bad residents, had a bad reputation, do you think if it was a nightmare kind of multifamily property, it would be owned for 10 years? 15, 20 years? Probably not. As a matter of fact, a red flag for me when I'm out looking to buy multifamily is how many owners have owned it over the last 10 to 15 years. So for example, a couple of months ago, I looked at a 180 unit multifamily community. I did my research and I found out this property had changed hands 4 times in 13 years. Now what does that tell you? That tells you one word: problems, right? So when you buy, invest, own a multifamily property, you want as little amount of problems as possible. So one of the reasons why you want a multifamily property that's been owned long-term is it pretty much tells you that most people, companies too, are not going to own a multifamily property long-term, continues to have problems. So that's part one of gold nugget number one. But part two is actually a better part. And that's simply this. What you'll find with long-term owners, again, doesn't matter, individual, even company, corporation, doesn't matter, is after a period of time, they start to take their foot off the accelerator, so to speak, when they own their multifamily property. They tend to relax a little bit, tend to be a little more informal when it comes to running their properties. What that basically means is they tend to not pay as much close attention to that apartment community or that, in this case, business, as you would think. So long-term owners, what you'll find, tend not to have all of their rents up to market value. Okay? They tend not to pay attention to some of those expense items that they could improve. Here's an example, okay? We just got done looking at 56 units. Madison and my daughter, we walked through 56 units last week. I walked out of there excited. I'm like in the truck, yelling and screaming, woohoo! I'm like, and she's looking like, what is your problem? What's going on? Well, my problem was I knew that these apartments, these 56 units, by the way, owned over 30 years by this owner, had a lot of realistic room for us to grow. I knew it. I'm going to talk more about these in future gold nuggets, but what you'll find is the longer the ownership, more than likely, the more they have taken their foot off the accelerator and left people like us, investors like you and me, room to go in there and make money from these properties immediately. So, gold nugget number one, long-term owners, 10 to 15 years is a key. Number two, gold nugget number two is, I kind of mentioned it, maybe gave it away a little bit. It's market rents. Okay, market rents. Can you realistically raise the market rents? Now, caution. Don't make this mistake that I made for many years. A mistake that a lot of investors make is you'll probably more than likely request a multifamily property's profit and loss statement, financial statement, income and expense statement. Okay? The mistake to make here is when you look at that, you look at it on its face value. Okay, so you look at the profit and loss statement, and what the majority of multifamily investors do is they'll look at that and say, that property performs well, it doesn't do very good, and next. No. You want to now look under the surface and ask yourself, okay, I see how it's operating now, but can I realistically, I want to emphasize that term, realistically, raise the rents and increase them once I take over, ideally in 6, 12, or the long term, 18 months after taking over. Okay, that's a gold nugget. When you find that there are apartment communities you can purchase where there's realistic room to take those rents up from where they are to realistically where they can be, that's exciting. As I mentioned, Madison and I last week here looked at a 56-unit apartment community, and I was woohoo excited because I knew walking through it, I'm looking at the rent schedule, and the rent schedules are telling me one thing, but I know we can get higher rents. And again, this isn't me thinking blue sky here. This isn't me thinking, if the planets align and everything works out, no. This is knowing what's going on in the market right now, I can get those rents. That's a gold nugget, my friend. So that's gold nugget number two. Being able to realistically increase and get those rents raised in a short period of time. Now let's go into nugget number three. Nugget number three. It has to do with the property's expenses. Okay, so let's go back to our scenario again. We've got the profit and loss statement. We've received that. We're looking that over, and again, what most investors do, which is a mistake, they look at that on the surface, make a decision on the surface, either maybe pursue it or cast it aside and say, okay, I'm going to look for a different one. Wait, put the brakes on. Your next task is to look at those expense items line by line and ask yourself this question. Can I realistically, there's that word again, realistically reduce the expenses that this property is producing? Let me give you an example. So it wasn't that long ago, we looked at buying and actually bought a small apartment community owned, not surprisingly, by the same owner almost 30 years. Are you getting the hint here? So this guy owned it almost 30 years. What we found out when we were looking at our expenses is we thought the insurance looked really high. I thought, man, that insurance cost, that property casualty insurance number, man, that looks kind of high. So what I found out was that owner, again, going on almost 30 years, had the same insurance agent the entire time he owned it. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but here's what is wrong with that. He never bothered over that entire period of time to shop around and see what other rates he could get on his property and casualty insurance. I mean, Fred, his insurance guy, just sent him a bill once a year, renewal, here's the bill, you paid the bill, and on he goes. Bad strategy. Why? Because when we looked at it, and I looked at where we could get an insurance carrier, property casualty, that specialized in a lot of multifamily properties, I got that insurance reduced by almost 20% for better coverage. Better coverage. Look, you can do that with almost every line item expense. Property taxes, utilities, lawn care, snow removal, pest control, etc., etc., etc. Now, are you going to be able to realistically reduce every line item expense? Of course not. But you may find enough room there on 2, 3, 4 of those. You got a golden nugget. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. You bring these 3 golden nuggets together, and it can create something quite special with your next multifamily acquisition. So think about it. You get that property that's been owned long-term owner. Okay, rents are really low, below market levels. You know, realistically, you can raise those. Those expenses are quite high. You know, realistically, you can lower those expenses by doing more solid work on that property. I mean, if you make these 3 gold nuggets a habit, my friend, the profitability that you'll have faster, larger, and just think of the time, effort, and energy that you'll save by putting that work into it. The payoff will be, I mean, it's exponential. Those are the 3 golden nuggets that you need to be thinking about and implementing in your next multi-family purchase. I'm Darin Garman, and I want to thank you for joining me on the Heartland Multifamily Show. And if you've gotten some value out of this show, hey, do me a favor. I'd love to get your feedback. You got questions, you got feedback, leave them below. Happy to read those and respond to you. And also, click the subscribe button. This is the All Things Multifamily channel, and if you like the content and it brought some value to you, don't miss out on anything else. Go ahead and click the subscribe button.